I'm gonna go in. I run it up in the right kind of What? Nigga, shit so fucking hard, hey. What? It's sad, I've been serving and the fag, I've been serving and the fab out the pen. Now when nigga work around the platform, and chirp around the tag, nigga serving and the spell, trying to pen. I love my nigga.
This live stream may contain content that could be perceived as shocking or offensive, but it is presented solely for educational purposes. Viewer discretion is advised. We strive to adhere to community guidelines, and any potentially sensitive material is shared with the intent of fostering understanding and learning.
Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy, Atypical Security Guard. Welcome to the live stream. Today, we are going to be talking about top 5 ways tactical training is ruining law enforcement. What? What do you mean, my man? Ruining law enforcement? Guys, listen, we have to talk about the obvious. Have you seen the most recent video that is circulating all over the interwebs, as George W. Bush Jr. would say, right? It's the video that's going around of a Florida law enforcement officer who believes that he's being shot at. No, hang on a second. Believes that he has actually been shot. And they find out that it is the sound of an acorn hitting the car. Guys, I cannot make this shit up. This is the story that they're going with, but it brings up a much larger point. I'm going to get right to the much larger point right now. I tend to allow myself to opine and ramble and take an hour and a half to get to the major point, but I'm going to give you guys this nugget of information right now. Guys, this is the first time in the history of all of my live streams that I have given you the nugget at the very beginning of the show, okay? Do not, under any circumstances, take into account the way that law enforcement officers are handled in these situations and think that you as a security guard or you as the everyday average citizen in an EDC situation can respond in the same exact way. It will not happen. Guys, there is a security guard right now from Portland, Oregon, who articulated that he felt that the person that he shot 6 or 7 times was going to run him over. And for all intents and purposes, despite the fact that he should not have been working in that capacity, despite the fact that he initiated the context, if you take all of that off the table, and you just look at what he articulated as his reason for unloading a magazine into the cab of a truck. Had he been a police officer, more than likely that would have flown. But what I want you guys to understand, and the reason why I take time out of my day to come on here and make these videos, is because I want to get across to you guys that it will not work that way for us. It won't. We do not have qualified immunity. We do not have the support of a union. We do not have a historical context in which the police departments, for their own best interest, will find a way to explain away any level of incompetence that is shown by a police officer. That will not happen in private security. And I need you guys to understand that, because as you listen to people like Mike Glover, as you listen to people like Tim Kennedy, as you watch people like GBRS, as you listen to current and former law enforcement officers who are giving you advice, you better understand that you have to take all of that with a grain of salt. Because as a security guard and as an everyday average citizen, there is no explaining away lack of positive identification before you engage the threat. There is no explaining away the fact that a person did not demonstrate opportunity and intention before you engage that threat. There's no explaining it away. for the everyday average person or for the security guard. Now, if you are a police officer, there is no level of incompetence that cannot be articulated or explained away. Why is that? Because at the end of the day, in order to maintain the system that the police officers operate under in this country, they cannot find them to be negligent or find them to be responsible for the outlandish, dangerous actions of a police officer like the one that we're going to be discussing today. That would make them civilly liable. That would make them criminally liable. And ultimately, at the end of the day, regardless of what I'm saying right now, we need police officers. It's a job that has to be done. It is a thankless job. It is a dangerous job. And it is a job that is almost impossible to find people who want to be a part of. I get that. I sympathize and I empathize. But because of that, and because we need someone to go out there and establish fines and fees and be able to facilitate the locking up of individuals, you're not going to see a situation where they come out and say, hey, we were wrong in this instance. You're just not going to see it. But I caution all of you to not think that that filters into private security, because it doesn't. And the second that you think that you can operate under that same system and think that you are going to get the same type of treatment, the same type of hand holding, the same type of walking through the system, you are in for a rude awakening. And more than anything, aside from anything else on this platform, on this channel, I don't give a flying fuck. What I don't want is for you guys who are out there making $13 to $25 an hour to find yourself in prison because you've been led to believe that you can operate in the way that these people operate. That is not reality. Okay? So that is my $50,000 approach to giving you this information before I even go down this road. You can log off right now. And if you take what I just said to heart and you keep that planted in the back of your mind, I will feel 110%, 1000% vindicated in what I've set out to do to help educate, motivate, train, and inform. If you just take that nugget of information that you cannot under any circumstances operate the same way, under the same attitude and understanding of police officers, and think that you are not going to be put in jail. They will put you and me under the fucking bricks if we were to do what this police officer did. Okay? Whoo! Oh my God, I had to get that out. Okay, let's get right to it. Okay, this video comes from the Telegraph, courtesy of the Telegraph, all rights reserved to the Telegraph. I am utilizing this under fair use for education and document purposes. Let's go.
Shots fired! Shots fired! Shots fired! Shots fired! Shots fired! Shots fired! You know. I'm hit! What? I'm there! In the car! I was shot through the car! Oh! I'm good, I'm good.
All right, you're not on fire.
I knew it, you're lying! I'm burned!
There is no fire.
Come back here!
But something looks wrong. I mean, he's running around like he's on fire.
I don't know.
So in this situation, to the best of what I've found out, a girlfriend calls the cops on a boyfriend for stealing her car. There seems to be some sort of issue in terms of the children. Long story short, she informs the police that, hey, this guy has lots of guns. Be aware, be careful. First officer places the individual, the subject allegedly, into the vehicle, and then has the secondary officer attempt to go over and do I guess like a cursory search, make sure the guy doesn't have any weapons. I don't know why this wasn't done to begin with. Maybe it was just to separate the two people. However, when the second officer, this would be Officer Hernandez, approaches the vehicle, according to what I have heard, in his mind, he's thinking that this person might potentially have a firearm. He hears a Acorn. Okay. He doesn't know it's an Acorn, but he hears something pop. And from that causes his reaction. Now, my issue is this. Okay. This is where I have the biggest problem with situations like this. We are in the middle of a ideological and a cultural war when it comes to firearms. Every single situation that involves an active shooter, that involves a situation of aggression that has a firearm, the people on the left, they argue and they rant and they rave about the issues concerning firearms and firearms access and firearms ownership. And then the people like us, the good people on the right, who are arguing for the Second Amendment, arguing for people's right to bear arms, people that are in the know, people that are knowledgeable, right? Like your law enforcement officers, like your former military soldiers, like people who are involved in the 2A community. They come out and they say shit that is absolutely asinine. Mike Glover of Fieldcraft Survival, who I have always been a big fan of, he comes out yesterday and he makes a statement basically saying, like, this police officer is involved in this situation and responds this way because law enforcement officers are constantly being put in a situation where they're at a heightened level of stress, and that it's not normal for the average person to have to operate at that level of stress. And this is a, potentially parasympathetic reaction to what he's dealing with on a daily basis, and that we should be understanding. Fuck that. The average person who watches this video looks at it the exact same way that we looked at Will Ferrell running around thinking that he was on fire. These are the people that are paid to carry a firearm and to utilize that firearm in the commission of their duties. These are the people that are looked at and supposed to be the experts. Now, we as people in the Second Amendment community, people in the firearms community, people in the armed security community, the police community, if we can't have an honest conversation when situations like this happen. Excuse me, guys, I'm just getting over COVID. I'm having a hard time getting all this out. If we can't have an honest conversation when situations like this happen and say, hey, look, that is bad. That's a bad shoot. There's no excuse for that. There's no explaining that away. That is unacceptable. He's shooting into a vehicle in a neighborhood where clearly there's people, there's children. He doesn't have positive identification of a threat. He doesn't have positive identification of a subject. That is not okay. Short of us saying that in situations where it is so outlandishly obvious, we lose all credibility. And that is a hindrance to us continuing to fight for our ability to have firearms in general and to be able to have firearms within the profession that we have. Now, if this would have been a security guard, imagine how that would have been utilized against us in terms of our being able to have a firearm to perform our duties. There's no doubt that would be utilized against us, right? So as a community, as a firearms community, as a law enforcement community, somebody needs to start being honest about this shit. And it doesn't do us any good for people like Mike Glover or Tim Kennedy or any of these big name people to constantly come out and find some way to justify this shit because their business model is made on training people like this. That is not okay. Now, I know for a fact that there are people like myself, and there are other people that are out there that are leading the charge in terms of talking about and breaking down the issues within private security. I have come on here multiple times and shown videos of security guards doing wrong and breaking it down and talking about the issues. There's not enough of that happening on the side of the police. There's not enough of that happening in law enforcement. This idea that the police can do no wrong and that no matter what they do, they can't be chastised, they can't be, their situation can't be broken down, and you can never under any circumstances say that this is not okay coming from the police side, from the law enforcement side. That has got to stop. That's got to stop. Law enforcement officers should be coming out saying that is bad policing. I don't know if that guy is going through something. I don't know if he's smoking a crack pipe. I don't know what the situation is. I don't know if he's afraid to be on the street, but as a law enforcement officer, you should look at that and say that is not okay under any circumstances. And the fact that that's not happening is absolutely infuriating to me. Okay, let's get some of these comments in. All right. Let's see here. Jack Spade Productions. Glad to see you, man. Absolutely. Yeah. Glad you're feeling better. Don't be going around licking doorknobs. Absolutely. Mike Glover. He's mad because they told him he can't teach anymore to civilians. You can find a video online where he's all mad about it. Yeah, he's upset about the paramilitary situation that's potentially coming down. Guys, listen, I want to talk about something that goes along with this video. Okay. My issue with law enforcement and how it plays into this. If you were to ask yourself, how did we get here? How did we get here? How did we get to a place where, people are reaching for their wallets and they're getting shot? People are reaching for their registration, they're getting shot. People are having mundane conversation with police officers. It's leading to shootings. It's leading to, situations of a hands-on incident that goes south. How did we get here? And I want to explain to you guys that we didn't get here by happenstance. None of this stuff is happening by coincidence. How many of you are aware of a program called Killology? How many of you know the program Killology? It's a program that was created and was taught by a former military, I believe he was an officer, and I believe his name is Rex Grossman. And this is the idea that permeates through our law enforcement community that has made our law enforcement community over the last 20 years become more tactically sound, more tactically proficient. Now, some would say in the face of situations like 9/11, in the face of, cartels that have infiltrated our major cities, gang violence that has gotten worse over the past 20, 25 years, that our police officers are in more danger than ever. In that, in order for them to facilitate what they're doing, in order for them to be successful and safe, there needed to be a raise in awareness in terms of their training, in terms of their tactics. They have to meet the level of threat with equal or greater force. And on one hand, I can totally agree with that, right? As somebody who, on a far smaller spectrum, working in the security industry, I can understand the need to be vigilant and diligent and able to deal with the things that I'm going to deal with on a daily basis. I get that. But I asked you guys a couple of weeks ago, I said, what is the job of law enforcement? Is it A, to enforce laws? B, is it to, facilitate fines and fees? Is it to C, stop crime? Or is it to D, get home at the end of the night? We hear that all the time. My job is to get home at the end of the night. My job is to get home at the end of the night. Well, that comes from Rex Grossman's Killology philosophy, that the officer is the apex. The officer is the most important part of that interaction between the police department and the civilian. And I would say that that is the wrong mentality, that I understand where it's coming from, but that it leads to situations like this. I want to share with you guys a video that comes from CNN. Sorry, I have to share from CNN. Okay. All rights reserved, and credit to CNN for this video. I won't go through the entire 5-minute video, but it gives you a glimpse into the mind of Rex Grossman and a glimpse into killology, and then we'll break down why that is problematic for law enforcement and how ultimately that trickles down to us in security. Here we go.
The Pro-Tree model is tactical training for the warrior mindset.
Everything comes down to how much sweat, how much hard work you're putting into the preparation for that moment, and you're gonna have to fight for your life.
These videos show a controversial style of warrior police training that's being offered to officers across the U.S.
Warrior training has become a sort of a catch-all for a type of training that tries to emphasize this idea that police officers need to tap into their kind of inner warrior, their inner survival instinct. And it essentially instructs officers to treat every individual that they interact with as a potential threat. And the downside of that is that cops are sort of trained to escalate rather than de-escalate situations.
There's been silly people that don't like the use of that word warrior with law enforcement. Is our nation at war? Is our cops the frontline troops in this war? Yeah. And they don't want to use the word warrior? They're in denial. They're just in stinking denial.
Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman is a former U.S. Army Ranger and creator of a type of training known as killology. Over the last 20 years, he's trained educators and law enforcement at the federal, state, and regional level in all 50 states, according to his website.
Violence is your tool. Violence is your enemy. Violence is the realm you live in, and you must master it.
While warrior training has been around for years, there isn't any real research showing how effective it actually is, and several recent high-profile incidents have put it under increased scrutiny. The officer that shot and killed Philando Castile in 2016 took a bulletproof warrior training session, according to the city of St. Anthony, Minnesota. And George Floyd's family references killology training in warrior-style cultures in the lawsuit they filed after his death.
Don't pull it out.
All right, you guys get the point. So again, his name is Dave Grossman. I apologize. I said Rex Grossman. His name is Dave Grossman, Army Ranger, retired, founder and instructor of Killology. Now, this is not going into a realm of woke DEI acceptance. Guys, listen, I'm not a fucking idiot. I understand with all due respect what these police officers are up against. I understand what they're dealing with to the best of my ability, the best of my knowledge, and I get it. I get it. The unfortunate thing is that in reality, there has to be some nuance. There are people out there in law enforcement that cannot discern between the ambiguity. A lot of you people watching this shit don't even know what ambiguity means. There's officers out there that cannot discern the ambiguity that comes with knowing when to utilize this mindset and when to dial it back, when to lean into understanding of systemic issues and when to focus on the policing aspect, right? And I think that it's hard in any environment when you're training to provide everything. It's hard to do everything for everybody, right? You create a program, you are doing it with the best intention, but some people need a remedial training of the underlying issues. And unfortunately, for a police department, for a security company, you can't do that. You provide them with the training and you're expecting them to understand how to utilize that, how to discern, between when to utilize certain aspects and when not to. The unfortunate thing is that everybody, you guys involved, you guys included and me included, everybody gravitates towards the tactical shit. We gravitate towards the hands-on stuff. We gravitate towards the firearm stuff. We gravitate towards the tactical stuff. And unfortunately, when that is what is in your mind and what is being drilled into your head every single day, you start to see everything as a threat. To the man who only has a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So we're going to talk about 5 ways that this type of tactical training, advanced tactical training, okay, how this is ruining law enforcement. Guys, at the end of the day, whether you're pro law enforcement or you're anti law enforcement, whether you back the blue or you have an issue with the blue, at the end of the day, we all live in this society and we have to get along. There has to be a better way of policing and a better way of dealing with the public than to always shoot first, than to always go hands-on. And this trickles down into security because we as guards, we follow the path of the police officers. De-escalation needs to be first and foremost. It needs to be front and center. Why? Because at the end of the day, going home at night, if that's the goal, the easiest way to do that is to de-escalate. On the other hand, if you make the attempt to de-escalate a situation and someone wants to turn it up into something else, that gives you better legal standing and moral standing for what you have to do from that point forward. I would like to see that be the idea behind policing and behind security. So we're going to talk about my top 5 issues that I have with killology, the tactical training mindset, and how I see that as ruining law enforcement right now as it stands. Okay. Number 1, it focuses on escalation of force. Grossman's killology training emphasizes a shoot first mentality that leads officers to escalate situations unnecessarily, potentially resulting in avoidable harm and fatalities. When your mindset is that it's you versus me and I am going home at the end of the night, that puts you into a thought process of dealing with situations aggressively and quickly and decisively. And I understand why that's needed. I get it. But there has to be some discernment on when to utilize that. And I don't feel like this program, and if you look into it, and I advise all of you to look into killology way deeper than what I've presented you in these 2 minutes of that video. Look into it. Look into what his philosophy is. This is being taught all across America to law enforcement agencies. And what's not being taught to law enforcement agencies, understand that same mentality, it is permeating people that are former special forces that are now training law enforcement. A lot of people that I'm big fans of, people that I follow, people that I personally have paid to go and train with. I'm not clean in this situation because I have paid money to go train with these people. Okay. But what they are teaching to the law enforcement community is this. Okay. Number 2, increased fear and mistrust. When police are trained in tactics focused on killing rather than de-escalation, it breeds fear and mistrust amongst the public. If you see everybody as a threat, every single action that they make is going to come off as threatening. I cannot make it any more simple than that. And as security guards, we have to be very, very careful because in our capacity and what we do, we cannot operate like this. I really want to get this across to you guys. Take the training, learn the techniques, understand the thought process behind what these guys are doing, but do not digest that thought process that everybody is a threat and everybody is a potential bad guy, because if you interact with people in that capacity, you're going to pay for it. Okay. Number 3, lack of accountability. Training officers in killology can contribute to a culture of impunity where officers feel justified in using lethal force, even in situations where it may not be needed. Guys, you can go and you can look at, I believe it's, what is his name? It's an armed attorney. It might be the attorney for attorneys on retainer. I'm not sure, but there's an attorney out there that breaks down video footage like this. He did a great breakdown of this video. Okay. And you're listening to him talk about the interview of the 2 officers. They are able to perfectly articulate, not in the realm of rationality, because when you listen to what they're saying, none of it makes sense. But the fact that they're able to articulate it in any fashion, it gives them plausible deniability. And ultimately, both of these officers were not charged. Now, luckily, the person in the back of the cruiser was unharmed. How? I don't know. It's the grace of God, right? But because they were able to articulate something that made sense in the police world, they were not held accountable for mag dumping in a neighborhood where there's kids outside, homes, people driving up and down the street. Okay. And the attitude of us versus them, we have to get home at the end of the night. That is what ultimately allows them to be able to do that. That lack of accountability, the fact that there is a police union, the fact that there are people that back this kind of action. That's the situation, but that's the truth and the reality of it. And we don't have that. Okay. Be aware of that. Number 4, the impact on mental health. Constant exposure to training that emphasizes killing and violence can have detrimental effects on officers' mental health, potentially desensitizing them. This is one aspect that I think that we as security guards have to be aware of. We have to be aware of it because based on where we're working, what we're doing, and the type of work that we're involved in, we might not be dealing with threats on a daily basis. But if we're constantly training, or we're constantly watching training videos, or we're constantly following YouTube channels that are talking about, extensive threats, that can have a negative impact on how we see things, right? It can get you amped up in a situation where you don't have to be amped up. You might be dealing with a crackhead who's, being belligerent, but he's not a threat. He's not a deadly threat. So you have to be aware of what you're consuming, what you're reading, what you're following, what you're watching, what you're listening to. Don't allow this YouTube shit to gas you up and put you in a situation where you respond to something that you don't have to respond to in that certain kind of way. Okay. Last but not least, number 5, negative perception of law enforcement. Utilizing tactics associated with killology further perpetuates negative perceptions of law enforcement, undermining efforts to build trust. Nobody felt safe when those cops left that day. Unfortunately, when it comes to police officers and when it comes to a lot of security guards, people say, I don't give a shit. I don't care what people think. Well, you should. Guys, we are in such a divided time right now. I'm not going to get on a political rant, but we're so divided, and we should care. We should care what our neighbors think. We should care what the public thinks. We should care what the customers that we deal with think. We should care. And when we get to a point where we absolutely do not care anymore, we don't give a fuck anymore, then we're at a place where things are not going to be able to get any better than what they are right now. And they're pretty bad right now. We should care. Okay. Regardless of the fact that you put that uniform on and you're a police officer, you live in that community. Those are people that you went to school with, people that you care about, people that you know, your neighbors. It should matter to you what people think. And if you're working in security, it should matter to you what people think. And you should go out there to do your absolute best to better the areas that you're working in and the situations that you're placed in, not to make them worse. Okay? An attitude of de-escalation goes a long way. Avoid the attitude that we are in a war and that we're in a war zone or a situation where every single person is a threat. so that you don't respond to an Acorn the way that that police officer responded. They should be better than that. And we, if we're going to carry firearms and work in that capacity, should be better than that. And I'm calling on you guys to do that. Okay? Let's get some comments before we get out of here. Okay? Let's see here. That was the Mike Glover comment. Not really fond of David Grossman. Absolutely. Cowboy, it's the warrior cop training and mentality. They view themselves as an occupying force, not public servants meant to serve and protect, and the guardians of the Constitution and Republic. And you see that a lot. If you watch First Amendment audit videos, that tells you everything that you need to know about where a lot of law enforcement officers stand. You know, and this is not, I'm not making this video to bash police officers. I fucks with cops. I fucks with police officers, and I respect good intention and good meaning police officers. There's a couple cops here in Portland that are absolutely amazing. Like, I would fucking take a bullet for some of these guys. You know, two of my mentors are amazing former police officers. I love them to life. I am not anti-cop, but I'm also not able to look at a situation and say that that situation is wrong, right? And if you watch a lot of the First Amendment audit videos, you see where police officers clearly are willing to violate someone's constitutional rights, willing to escalate a situation that doesn't have to be escalated, willing to be rude, willing to get into a physical altercation. Like, that's not okay. It's not okay under any circumstances, because they have the power and the authority to remove your liberty from you, to take your life with impunity. That is a huge level of responsibility. A huge level of responsibility that should not be taken lightly. So this attitude that more people aren't willing to say, you need to do better in that capacity, that's not a problem with me. That's a problem with society, and that's a problem with the industry of law enforcement, that would even be a situation where they would get upset that someone is saying this is not okay, right? Jay Dan says, what up, everyone? Everybody say what up to Jay. Jay, I hope you're doing good, right? Jack Spade says, hey, Jay. I do like Frogman Tactical. Yeah, I do too. I've watched a couple of his videos, and dude seems legit, right? Canada in the house. Absolutely. Hey, Jay, I used to spend my Christmases in Gananoque. I hope I'm saying that correctly. I had a friend when I was living in Philadelphia that had property in Gananoque, which was right outside of Kingston, Ontario. I spent 3 Christmases, 2008, 2009, and 2010 in Gananoque, Kingston, Ontario. And I really, really loved Canada. It was a beautiful place. It was cold as fuck though, right? Jay Dan says also the general public here in Quebec is scared of the police. I believe that. You guys are scared of everything, but no disrespect. All right. So guys, listen, that's pretty much all that I have on this situation. That's my rant. That's my feelings on it. Please, when this goes up, go into the comments, drop a comment, because everything that you guys say on the stream, it does not transfer over. Also, keep your eyes open for my first official patch drop, right? I should have these patches in hand within the next 2 weeks. Looking forward to having you guys wear those and have those on your go bags, on your kits. These are not for work. I had some smooth brain goofball idiot make a video saying that I was asking you guys to wear these for work. The patches are morale patches. They're not to be worn at work, but I know you guys know that. But I'm looking forward to dropping those and having you guys support the platform and support what we're doing here. As always, it is an absolute pleasure. I hope you guys are getting value from what we're doing. Please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, watch your 6, go out there, do your absolute best, and be motherfucking great. Okay? You guys be great. Let's go.
I'm gonna go in. I run it up in there. I can't help it. What? Nigga, shit's so fucking hard. What? Sad, I've been swerving and the fag, I've been surfing and the fab out the pen. How many work around?